Hello, it's time for the next episode of our Catechism program, the Judeo-Christian Catechism program that the Disciple Center is using. And glad to have you with us. Last time we spoke about rites of passage and rites of intensification. We talked about the whole notion of religious ritual that I defined as prescribed behavior. What you say is predetermined, what you do is predetermined, so that you experience the ritual, you express the ritual. And both Judaism and Christianity make use of rituals to bring truth into manifestation through the observance of the ritual, and also into psychological reality and identity for the one who is engaging in the ritual itself. We talked about the two kinds of rituals: a rite of passage, which actually changes your status and is tied more to the life cycle, and therefore, generally, these things only happen once. And then the rites of intensification, which reinforce meaning. And these are usually repeated and most commonly associated with the holy days. We'll talk about those next time. Today, we want to talk about the life cycle rituals in Judaism, Christianity, and as we use them at the Disciple Center. Now, it would be nice if we could take each one of these and go into great detail as to what they are. And in our longer catechism, we will do this. But in this more short catechism, we're really just introducing them and giving an understanding of when they're done, why they're done, and to whom they're done. So we're going to begin with each one. What I'll do is I'll talk about the time of life that this ritual is done. Then I'll talk about historically what's done in Judaism, what's done historically in Christianity, and our adaptation of those in at the Disciple Center. So we're going to begin with infant rites. The rites really related to the time of birth, both for the birth of the child and for the parents and the congregation in that context. In Judaism, the primary focus for them, and this is specifically to males, is the circumcision of the child on the 8th day. This goes back to Genesis chapter 17, where God, in his covenant with Abraham, said that I'm going to give you this land. I'm going to give you to your seed and to your people. All the nations will be blessed by it. But this is what you will do. You will circumcise your males on the 8th day. So that Abrahamic covenant is part of what every Jewish boy is engaged in by his family with the synagogue. On the 8th day, they will circumcise the boy, bringing him into the covenant with Abraham. Now, in the book of Leviticus, chapter 12, there's actually an entire little chapter there that talks about the birth of a boy or the birth of a girl, and the idea of the naming, or a period of time up to the 8th day, and then a period of time to the 15th day for the girl, and then a dedication on the 40th day for the boy, and the 80th day for the girl. Now, this is developed down in Judaism for the circumcision and naming of the boy on the 8th day, the naming of the girl on the 15th day. Sometimes the father is given an aliyah. Then the dedication of the child in the temple at the time of Jesus, in the synagogue now, on the 40th day for the boy and the 80th day for the girl. And there's one other ritual related to childhood that's significant, and that's the redemption of the firstborn. God said, I own your firstborn, Israel, because I killed the firstborn of Egypt, but I'm going to allow you to redeem your firstborn, and you will redeem them, and I will take the tribe of Levi. So they really are a substitute for the priesthood of the believer or the Israelite. And so even today, the firstborn son is redeemed in the synagogue by giving money and going through a ritual of the redemption of the firstborn. And so circumcision with naming, dedication, and redemption of the firstborn is the tradition in Judaism. In Christianity, there was a parallel development in that context. The naming or christening certainly took place, and depending on Western Christianity or Eastern Christianity ties it more to the days of Leviticus and the timing of that. In Western Christianity, predominantly based on the Gospels, with Jesus being circumcised in name, John being circumcised in name. The naming became significant, and they were struggling with the circumcision. And so it developed within Christianity this idea of kind of a dedicatory baptism, that baptism would be done of the infant. In the Eastern Church, the child is actually immersed. In the Western Church, they are sprinkled or poured. And that became the ritual of welcoming the child, both in terms of its naming and its dedication. At the Disciple Center, we follow more the Jewish perspective and the Eastern Church. We do a naming in the home of the male children with our family and friends, and the 15th day, the naming of the girl in the home with our family and friends. And then on the service closest to the 40th day, we'll do the dedication in the congregation for the boy, and the 80th day for the girl in the congregation. So the child is welcomed into the home, given their name with a little ceremony and ritual. They're welcomed into the congregation on the 40th or 80th day with a dedication, where the parents actually do the ritual and the dedication of the child in that context. Now, by the way, for all of our rituals, if you'd like to see that, you can get the information from the Disciple Center. You can just contact us, and we'll give you those rituals. Now, around the age of 5 or 6, a child goes in from infancy into really childhood, and this is a critical learning point. So it's really about the beginning of the formal education of the child. In Judaism, there is a entrance to the Torah where the child actually goes through a ceremony. They put honey on the Hebrew letters, let the child taste it, taste and see that the Lord is good. What a wonderful experience for the child. In Christianity, this historically has been when the child will take their first communion. They begin to be instructed in the ways of the Lord. In the Disciple Center, what we do is we have the child go through a small ritual of an entrance to the scriptures. We try to get this to be done at the home, where the parents will maybe make cookies of some of the Hebrew or Greek letters or something to give that child that tasting thing. The child is given a Bible. They're given a small dictionary, maybe a bookcase. There's a ritual to say you are now formally going to be instructed in the faith and in the culture as well, because they begin school at that time. The end of this period, around puberty, 12 or 13, the child moves out of childhood into adulthood. And in Judaism, that's done by the bar mitzvah or the bat mitzvah, the ceremony of them reading their Torah passage, maybe even having a reception of this, where the child is now no longer a child, but seen as accountable to God directly. That faith that was my parents is now my faith, and will fully participate in the congregation of Israel. And so the bar mitzvah, the bat mitzvah, is a very important rite of passage, moving into adulthood, spiritual adulthood, in the congregation around the age of 12 or 13. Christianity paralleled this with what's called confirmation. At the end of the catechesis period, where the child has been instructed in the faith, the child will then make their own profession of faith, confirming that what their parents dedicated them to, either through a dedicatory baptism or a dedicatory service, will be confirmed now. And the child, the young adult, is usually then given the sign of the cross placed on their forehead with oil. If they've not been baptized, they will be baptized. And the idea that the Spirit of God is now with them and will guide them as an adult as they continue to walk in the things that they've been instructed. At the Disciple Center, we do a similar thing. We do an entrance to the scriptures, and then we do a confirmation at around between 12 to 16, depending on the child. They will make their own profession of faith. They will be baptized. If they're baptized, they will be baptized by their father if he is a believer. If not, one of the elders of the congregation will do that. But it's a celebration. They will be baptized and confirmed all at that time, and they become an adult in the congregation and take on adult responsibilities in prayers and readings and those kinds of things. So that moves us then to the rituals that are tied to adulthood, your young adulthood, that period between, say, 13, 14 to about the age of 30. Now, what's done then in Judaism is a couple will be betrothed, and then following the betrothal period where she prepares herself as a bride, he prepares the household, they will come together in marriage. That's the ancient tradition. Most of those have been, with exceptions, have been brought together where the betrothal and the marriage are all tied together. In Christianity, of course, marriage is a sacrament historically, and that's been used in that context. At the Disciple Center, we make use of a betrothal period that precedes the engagement period. That's a very serious time with vows and rituals that bring the couple together and really test and prepare them for the marriage. You know that engagement is usually preparation for the wedding, but we engage in a preparation for the marriage, and we call that betrothal, and you can get information about that if you'd like. And then, of course, marriage and the wedding ceremony follows a combination of the Jewish and Christian ceremonies in our Judeo-Christian congregation. As we move towards the period of life when someone becomes an older adult or an elder, there is among clergy for Judaism smicha, which is a recognition and ordination, if you will, of a rabbi. In Christianity, you have the ordination of priests or ministers or pastors, depending on congregational framework. And we use ordination in our congregation as well. We will engage in either commissioning if it's a specific ministry, or if it's the general ministry, the ordination of an elder in that context. Now, you cannot live life very long without becoming ill, and so we do have rituals related to illness. In Judaism, prayer for the sick is a common occurrence, and it is a mitzvah. It is a good deed, if you will, to visit the sick, to encourage them, to bring food, to care for them in that sense. Christianity, following the same tradition, prays for the sick with the anointing of oil as required by James, and the visiting of sick is also a good deed and encouraged activity among Christians. At the Disciple Center, we certainly do that. We will pray, anoint people with oil and pray for them if they are severely sick. We will visit the sick in their home or at the hospital, trying to provide for them and for their family in those times of difficulty. And so those rituals, hoping to bring somebody from illness back to wellness, are part of the ritual as well. We certainly reach a point of the evil days, as Ecclesiastes says, and we reach places where sicknesses are unto death. And so in Judaism, there are rituals related to the deathbed, the attempt to say the Shema as your dying breath. There are certain customs regarding burial and funeral arrangements and mourning rituals through the first year and at various times of the year that are done in Judaism. Christianity follows the same thing. There are deathbed rituals, last rites, and other things tied to that. Certainly, there are requirements of ritual for funerals and burial, and for the mourning period as well. At the Disciple Center, we have uniquely drawn from both Judaism and Christianity for both the rituals related to coming near death, for the burial and the funeral, for the mourning, for the blessing or marking of a headstone, all of those things that are done. And again, we don't have time to go into all the details of that, but you can access that by contacting us at the Disciple Center. One last rite of passage that I want to talk about, and then I'll be done, and that is the rite of passage related to conversion. A non-Jew who comes into Judaism goes through a ritual of conversion that involves circumcision for a male and baptism for both a male and female in coming into the faith. And of course, Christianity also has a conversion ritual where one makes a profession of faith that Jesus is Lord and is baptized in response to that profession of faith. And of course, at the Disciple Center, we do that as well. If somebody comes to the faith and we are able to lead them to a knowledge of God and they make a profession of faith, then they are, of course, baptized in both the explanation of that and in the expression of that as a conversion experience. So rituals are very powerful. They're very important. They kind of guide us through our life. These particular life cycle rituals are very important in Judaism and in Christianity. So I hope that you will make use of those in your own walk of faith. And if we can help you with that, we have adaptations of all of the rituals from Judaism and Christianity that can fit into a more free church tradition or a more Judeo-Christian context. And if you'll contact us, we'll be happy to help you with that. So till next time, when we'll take a look at the Holy Day rituals and the rites of intensification, may the Lord bless you.